Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ohio State Primetime Live. I'm your co-host Ryan Stano.
I'm Garrison Gaddy. Before we get started, everybody, go ahead and please hit that like button. That's the only currency we truly would love for you to have here. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you can. And as always, if you have family members, friends, foes that just happen to be Buckeye fans or not, please send them here or anywhere else that we have in the network. I think Ryan and I do a great job here. Also, of course, we have Mark Rogers. On Wednesdays, we have Mike and Terry. So yeah, come to the Ohio State channel, everyone. I think we do great work here. Also, if you haven't already, you would like to become a member and join here at the Ohio State, the Voice of College Football during the season. We will be. Ryan, I gotta tell you, I actually I have a few things lined up. I'm really excited about. I gotta get the okay on it first, but hopefully that happens. Yeah. But if you want to see that, you should definitely do that. You can check the prices. If you press join, we have the Blocko Club. Next tier would be the JT wasn't short and my favorite. And of course, we don't give a damn, and you know the rest. But Ryan, go ahead and lead us, man. We got a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot to talk about. Co-sign everything you just said. First thing we wanted to start off the show here with a little bit more of a sour note. If I'm being honest, it's definitely some sad news that happened over the weekend, and that was that former All-American offensive lineman Kirk Barton was involved in a deadly car crash. It was on early Saturday morning, about 3 a.m. He ended up killing a 24-year-old man, and he was arrested on aggravated vehicular manslaughter charges. He was actually just released today on a $500,000 bond. And he's due back in court, I believe, on July 1st. So very sad situation overall. This is his third DUI in the Franklin County alone. Apparently he was partying up here at the local establishment out there in Westerville. And I want to make sure that the 24-year-old person who passed away was Ethan Perry. I want to make sure his name was out there. And apparently Barton was driving the wrong way on Bridge Street and then corrected into the right lane, but slammed into his car. So very sad situation. Like I said, extremely unfortunate all the way around. Young man lost his life. Former Buckeye now, his life is drastically changed. What was your thought when you first heard the news?
Oh, I heard it. I mean, firstly, man, it's sad. You never want to see it. You never want to see a young man lose his life that early. 24 years old, man. You haven't really lived life yet. You really haven't lived life. And so, on top of that, you're talking about parents, siblings, uncles, aunts, extended family, close friends who are never going to be able to see him again. They're never going to talk to him again, call him on the phone, text him, laugh with him, cry with him. So it's incredibly sad. And so for Ethan, man, that's sad. And then on the other side of that, I do want, a lot of people don't want to say this, but I have no problem with doing it. Kirk aside, there is a wife and three young children. And yeah, are they going to be able to talk to their dad still? Yep. Are they going to be able to see their dad still? Yep. But they got to deal with this too, and that ain't easy. I ain't saying it's as easy as death, but it's you're gonna see disparaging things about your father, your father, your husband, and rightfully so. And on top of that, some Wolverine fans didn't like me saying this, and I can care less about that. But I also don't find this to be and I would say the same to Ohio State fan that said that was using rivalry banter to talk about Michi or rivalry banter to talk about tragic instances like this. And I would say to any fan base, but I don't think this is the time to talk about Ohio State, Michigan. That's not what this is about.
No,
this is about life, and life, sir, is much more important than the game that we love or the rivalry that we love. So rest easy to Ethan. And I on both sides, man, for both families, I pray nothing but for peace, healing, and comfort over them. And yeah, that's all I
Certainly.
gotta say.
Yeah, no, pretty well said there. Definitely thoughts and prayers are with Ethan's family.
Mhm.
Um, like I said before, it's just a tragic incident all the way around. It's a young man lost his life before he even, like you said, got really into living.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Ryan. I want to point this out. I'm sorry to cut you off because
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I see Doreen in here, and shout out to Doreen. But I was talking to her earlier, and she showed me something, and no, there should be no Buckeye. If you want to have, empathy is one thing. I can have empathy about a lot of different things. There is no reason you should be giving sympathy to Kirk.
No,
If you want to have empathy towards people that have alcohol problems, I completely understand that. But you don't show sympathy towards this. They ain't the time. And it damn sure ain't the place. So yeah.
no, I totally agree. That's kind of where I was going here next is, Kirk, was a great player, great Ohio State player, was captain on the '07 team that won a Big Ten title, played for national
Mhm.
championship against LSU. That does not define him as a person. What does define him as a person is, some of the actions that he has. And unfortunately, this is a pattern. I mentioned this is his third alcohol-related offense that he has been arrested for.
Mhm.
And, had he recognized that he had some sort of issue, he should have been able to get some help, and maybe this young man would still be alive. Ethan would still be walking around and being able to hang out with his family. So I definitely don't. I do not have sympathy for Kirk.
Mhm.
I know there are certain people that are taking victory laps. With him and some of the Buckeye Scoop stuff. I'm not. There's no victories here. A young person lost their life. That's the tragic situation here. As you mentioned,
Yeah.
Kirk does have a family. He's got, those kids are going to have to, they're probably gonna have to live without their father for a while, because this
Mhm.
is not a situation where, oh, I get out of, jail for a day and I come back to my family and everything's back to normal. No, he is going to be in prison for a few years, and rightfully so. You can't, unfortunately, take
Yeah.
someone else's life and not live with consequences. So it's an all around sad situation. I don't, I hope he's able to use this as a chance to turn his life around once he does get out of prison, and
Mhm.
maybe make more of a positive impact on society, and maybe get out in front of alcohol related offenses. These are the kind of things that I don't have any sympathy for anybody, because there's so many better options than driving home drunk. You have
There
Uber,
is.
you have Lyft, you can call a friend. Like, we live in a day and age now where there cannot be any easier ways to get back home. So, if nothing else you take away from this opening segment, PSA to never drive intoxicated. Make sure you've got Uber, Lyft, a friend, whatever, because this is the kind of thing that could happen, and it's a tragic situation, and we'll see how the legal process kind of transpires. But I thought it was important that we opened up the show today with that, just to kind of acknowledge the young man, and
Yeah.
how like you said, like I said, thoughts and prayers to his family, and hope that they're able to find some peace. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and there's a lot of Ohio State positive news that did happen over the weekend as well, and a lot of it stems from recruiting. So I know that you had a list of
Mhm.
recruits that you wanted to get to. And I know you've got a list there, but the first thing I want to start with
Oh no, this is our
is
list. It's our list. Okay.
our list. Yes,
And you have more names to add on to it. So
I have some names that I wanted to surprise you with.
and I'm novice, and I'm novice. I'm okay with it. I'm pretty decent, but you're the guy for this, so I'm really excited for this today.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing is a name we both know, and it's something that we had seen here the last couple of days, something that is not that surprising to us, and it's the fact that it sounds like Jameer Perez, the three-star the three-star defensive lineman, will now be flipping his commitment from the Gators of Florida to Ohio State. And this is something that, we kind of seen, or I guess hoping was going to come. I mean, he's a Cleveland Glenville kid. It didn't really make any sense that Ohio State wasn't able to land him after he had an official visit with the Buckeyes, last month. But he visited again this weekend, and it sounds like that visit may have made all of the difference. And it sounds like that the 6'4", 360 pounds, yes, he's a big boy, defensive lineman will be more than likely flipping his commitment. What do you think of Perez, and what do you think his chances are of flipping to Ohio State? And do you think he would bring value to those hog mollies up front?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Of course, we all know, first off, shout out to Matt Patricia. Because he's one. If you look on 247, everyone, he is the secondary on that. He is the one that did offer him. But I think he shows value. Big kid, very big kid, Ohio kid, and I've always been of the. I think I've said this to you before. I've always been of the mindset that when you have fringe 4-star, 3-star kids in the state of Ohio, specifically in the trenches, I believe you should be offering them. Specific ones. If you believe they show value to the program on and off the field, you should be offering them. I think he's a very good player. I think that, some things he has to work on, just quickness, and that's just athletic ability stuff. But I do believe he's able to clog holes very easily. I think he's good with his hands, very long arms, which, of course, we've said about guys like Edric Houston. D tackles with long arms, it's an advantage against guards. Yeah. And so I think I do believe that. And on top of that, he's needed. He's needed, man. And maybe we can have a discussion about this later in the show, in terms of because I do want to talk about Larry Johnson and recruiting, because I have actually somewhat teared onto the other side of where I was last week with a few conversations that I've had. But no, man, if we can flip him from Florida, and I do believe we are going to, I think he wants to be a Buckeye. I'm not from Ohio. I'm not born and raised there, but I spent a lot of time in that state from the time I was a young boy. And what I do know is that when kids get offered from Ohio State, man, and they grew up as Ohio State fans, it means something to them. And that ain't just getting that ain't just your normal offer. This is something that is in your blood. So I'm very excited about it, and I hope it happens.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we can have that Larry Johnson discussion here in a little bit, because it does seem like Patricia is the main guy who has been able to, at least get in the heads of some of these defensive line recruits. As far as Perez goes, he's a massive guy. Ohio State needs depth on the defensive line because of some of the classes that they've had here in the last few years, where they just haven't gotten enough guys. And they kind of knew that this was going to happen as far as how many guys they were going to lose on the defensive line this season. So this is something they should have been planning for a little bit better. Yeah. And they just need more, quite frankly, they just need more guys. So that's something that Patricia, I think he sees as the defensive coordinator. And I'm glad that he has taken more of an active role on recruiting than Jim Knowles did. Penn State fans are finding out just now that he's not exactly the most active recruiter in the world, and they're kind of taken aback by it, which is surprising. But it's good to have a guy who seems to understand the need to get on the recruiting trail and get some of these high school kids. As far as his impact, what he could have if he did join the Buckeyes, I don't expect him to have a huge impact. I think he's more of a depth piece, someone who can, come in and definitely be a part of the rotation. But
Yeah.
I don't really see him being, a long-term starter or anything like that. But you need those kinds of guys on the team, especially when you're playing 16, 17 games in a college football season. Now, you have to have that depth, especially in the trenches. So if he's definitely a name I'm going to be watching.
So I was going to say, while we're here, so Damari Simeon, he just gave his commitment date. What does it say? There we go. June 27th, 5 p.m.
Okay. There we go.
Oh, hey, and shout out to him. I'm also Haitian. Sapa se aboule.
And for those who don't know, Simeon, another defensive lineman. He is a 4-star defensive lineman from the state of New Jersey. And he's going to be choosing between Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Michigan. Those are the 4 on his list. So he was another guy that was visiting this weekend. And obviously he must have – the hope is that he made a good enough impression on him because, we've talked about 2 defensive linemen here so far in Perez and Simeon. Mm-hmm. They apparently have decided to stop recruiting PJ Dean. And that's someone who we have both talked about as a combo offensive lineman, defensive lineman guy, and they were trying to figure out what position he was going to play. Sounds like they don't really care what position he's going to play at all because they seem to have moved off of him as a prospect, which to me is very surprising. So they better land one of these 2 guys. That's all I got to say.
So I did talk to someone because I didn't believe it at first. So I asked someone that I truly trust, and I said, what was the reason? He's too small now. He lost a lot of weight.
That's what people have said. Is that his body has now started. They
said he's around or just under 220.
As we've seen, you don't think Marotti can put that weight back on him in a hurry? He's done that with plenty of other guys.
But I mean,
not in the best way either.
But so why do you think he did that? Like, I'm very curious. Like, I don't know why, but what would be your reason for him? Why do you think he lost all that weight?
I truly don't know, unless he decided that he wanted to be more of a edge guy, more of an edge guy, linebacker kind of player. But he doesn't. The problem is his skill set doesn't really line up with that. Like, he's not built to. He doesn't have the speed that you would want coming off the edge. So I don't know why that's something that he decided, would think about doing. So to answer your question, I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
Do you have an opinion on that?
No, but I think it was a mistake. I don't want to say mistake. I don't want to tell the kid what to do with his body, right? But
yeah.
I do believe that, for PJ, top 10 offensive line recruit, top 10 then turns to a top 10 defensive lineman recruit. Now maybe he wants to play the edge, and if he does, who are we to say no? But clearly Ohio State wanted him to stay around that 250 range because they want to build upon that. And because I think he's 6'4", right?
That's right.
Yeah, so it was surprising. I do believe him to be a good player, but of course, I don't think Ohio State. We are.
PJ Dean is actually 6'5".
Okay,
so he's even bigger.
Yeah, I think that for Ohio State, they have the edge rushes they are already looking at right now, and I don't want to say the room has extreme depth, but the room does have depth right now, and I do think that for Matt Patricia, with him with him running a base 3-4 multiple defense, we also understand that you're going to be using outside linebackers as edges also. And so I don't know. I'm only speculating on this, but it was interesting. And when I heard it, I didn't believe it at first. But
yeah, that was definitely interesting. But I don't think they're necessarily in a position where they can just start giving up on defensive linemen. They kind of need to fill that room with a big class here, and it doesn't seem like they're going to do that. But Ohio State had some other guys visiting this weekend, and I want to hit a few here for a second. And I kind of want you to go through some of the guys that you had on your list that I didn't. So,
yeah.
First off, Four-star corner Jordan Thomas. He was already committed to Ohio State, so he came in for a visit, kind of helped recruit some of the defensive backs. So I thought that was good news. It's always good when you've got guys who are already committed to Ohio State come in for an official visit, just kind of reaffirm that they made the right decision and try to bring some other guys in there as well. But, while we're kind of staying on the defensive line edge kind of front here, Landon Barnes was also in Columbus. And Barnes is a 4-star edge guy from, I believe he's from Duncanville. So he's
Duncanville.
from Texas. 4-star kid, 6'3 and a half, 235. So, he's a little bit on the slender side there too, but, he knows he's an edge. He's not trying to be an edge already. He's got, this is the last visit he's got listed, like his last official visit. So Ohio State's hoping that they, made a good impression on him. What are your thoughts on Barnes?
Well, first off, it'll be nice to get a Duncanville player on our team due to the fact we lost one not too long ago. No, good size player, good athlete. I went through a lot of film. Like, my goodness, I went through a lot of film today. But I don't necessarily think he's a developmental player, but I do think there are technical things he needs to work on. Coming off of the edge, he's very fast. He's also very powerful for his size. I do want to point that out. Now, I think for me, the question is right now, my biggest question is, can we get him? We are somewhat. I don't want to say late on his recruitment, but I would say almost
that's probably the right word.
Yeah. I was gonna say, but more like it's a late push, man. And we're gonna talk. I'm sure we're gonna talk about another Duncanville person here shortly. These are some late pushes, man. And at this point, I think I put this on X maybe a few days ago. I think right now, when it comes to the defensive line, and this goes for everyone we're going to talk about here tonight. Ryan Day, Matt Patricia should be in every single recruitment or involved in every single recruitment with Larry Johnson, I believe.
Yes. At this point, it's got to be hand-holding. It's got to be hand-holding.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is.
What other word can you go for? I mean, at this point, what are you?
It's late. It's late in the cycle, man. Like, it's not late in the cycle. We still got a whole how many more months left? But
yeah, I mean, there's still 6-7 months to go.
But over the weekend, Ryan, did you not? I'm not sure how often you were on X this weekend, but how many times did you see defensive lineman committed? Defensive lineman committed. Defensive lineman committed. I saw
none of them had a Buckeye nut next to their name.
Not at all. Not a nada. And so it's getting frustrating to the point. I think we have one defensive lineman commit right now on the team. So and then when I look at teams like Texas, they got 5.
Yeah.
And we're still battling them from other ones.
That's right. So right now, you mentioned Ohio State, their defensive line commits. As of right now, they only have one, and it's an edge guy, Kari Weiler.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a 4-star kid, and that's the only guy. So other than Weiler, it's kind of looking bleak on the defensive line front as far as the 2026 class is concerned.
Which can't be right now because while we're here, let's just quickly go through it.
Go ahead.
Our edge depth right now, because this is gonna. I mean, we're probably gonna have Kenyatta for another year. Probably, we'll see how he plays this season. Curry's gonna be leaving after this season. Logan George.
You'll lose Curry. You'll CJ Hicks is gone. He's out of eligibility.
Hicks. Yep.
You'll have Logan George. You'll have Josh Mickens still.
Josh Mickens.
But if we'll see how Bo Atkinson does. If he's got a good year, he could be on. it gets pretty dire once you get through that depth chart.
Yeah.
It's not great.
And then, I mean, at D tackle, we've gone through D tackle plenty of times now. We've said countless times, and then like our interview with Luke Montgomery, he did have a high praise for good grief, 6'7" kid. What am I thinking about right now?
Are you talking about like defensive tackle wise?
Yeah. I'm just talking about the whole D line right now. Crap, I'm going blank right here for some odd reason.
I don't remember specifically.
Name our D tackles.
Okay,
McDonald, Houston.
Yeah, Caden McDonald, Edric Houston.
Will.
Will Smith Jr. is more of a defensive end. But we'll see.
Good grief. Who am I thinking of?
Might be able to move him inside. I think you're I mean, are you thinking about? I mean, so there's Logan George, there's Zion Grady.
No, I'm talking strictly defensive tackle. Strictly defensive tackle.
Okay, if you're talking strictly defensive tackle, there's Trajan Odom, Eric Mensa, Ahmed Tunkara, Jacquez Carter, Jason Moore.
There we go, Jason Moore. So I've had things to say about him.
You know why it took so long for you to remember him? Because he's done nothing for 2 years.
He's done nothing. And Luke had a lot of good things to say about him. So we'll see. But it's very common. It's common knowledge throughout our fan base right now. No, not just the fan base, through all Buckeye Nation, because Ryan Day even talked about it. He stressed it. After the first two, like at this point, man, how many defensive tackles do you think that we should be wanting to take in this class?
As many as you can get, quite frankly. I think both lines need depth, and because of what they've been able to do, or I guess lack of what they've been able to do.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Rod. I went straight mind blank right there. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's and then he goes, "That's he's good in the video game at least." Yeah, that's because you could buy whatever upgrades you need through your experience points to help upgrade the entire defensive line. But I think you need at least 2 or 3, and I'm talking defensive tackles. I'm not talking edge guys. And it doesn't seem like they're really targeting a whole lot on the defensive line. And if you want, we can just have the Larry Johnson conversation now before we get to some of the other recruits here. You kind of mentioned it before. You need Matt Patricia helping on the recruiting front. You need Ryan Day out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's hand-holding is what it is. It's like, okay, Grandpa Johnson, let's go over here. Let's talk to Jameer Perez. Let's talk to Landon Barnes. Like they gotta. It's so frustrating because this was an easily avoidable situation, and it's going to screw up not just this class, but it's going to screw up the next couple of years, even if this year is his last year, just because the depth's not going to be there, and that's disappointing.
Very, and Abdul says, I hope we land Deuce Gerald's. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I don't think it's happening.
No.
I don't think it's happening. There's a few guys I don't think it's happening for. I would say him. The other one is Carter Meadows. I don't think we're landing that. And if I'm being quite honest with you guys, I think he's going to the team up north. And I have very good reason to believe that. And if I'm wrong, thank God. If I'm wrong, I'll be happy about it.
Yeah.
But it's I think the word to use right now for the defensive line recruiting is worrisome.
That's one way to put it. And look, I'd like to kind of turn the conversation around to some more.
Let's do that.
More positive people who are going there. So another guy who had visited this weekend, 5-star recruit, number 1 safety in the class, Braylon Womack. And Womack is someone that Ohio State's been linked to for a while. They actually already have the number 2 safety in the country. They've already got a 5-star safety in this class, in Blaine Bradford. So if they're able to land Womack on top of that, a kid from Mississippi, where Ohio State doesn't do a whole lot of recruiting, that would be a real added bonus to the secondary. And I it seems like Matty G's doing a real good job of recruiting and getting his butt out there and getting these kids,
I like him.
bought into Ohio State. And all the crystal ball predictions have Womack coming to Ohio State. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on him?
I if there was ever such a thing as a Garrison lock, I think Womack is one of them.
Okay.
I think that Matty G is a rising star. First off, I want to point that out. I think he's a rising star in terms of recruiting and coaching. On top of that, Womack, very good athlete. He reminds me. I think that he's one of those rare safeties because not every safety is pretty good at man coverage. Safeties are kind of like how do I want to say this? They're like linebacker. I don't know how I want to put this, but safeties aren't always the best at coverage. But I think that Womack is one of those rare players where you can rely on him in the run game, but then you can also say, hey, if there's a slot receiver, if there's a very athletic tight end, you can ask him to go out there and go cover him. I think that if Ohio State's I think Matty G is able to land him. I do think that secures the safety recruiting for the year. And
For sure.
and I mean that would bring us, was it 3 or 4 safeties in this class? Understanding that Simeon is probably going to move down to linebacker, but no, man, it's and I am very surprised that with the safeties that we have right now, that he's very much so looking at going to Ohio State above everybody else. So that's exciting. It really is.
No, it is. I think he's a really good player. I really like his tape. Again, it would be great if Ohio State could land him. We'll see what happens. But I know there were some people on a list you wanted to get to, but I figured you'd like to do some reading before that happens. Now that we're about halfway through the show here.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I also want to spring some guys on you because I've got some interesting nuggets have come up with some of these guys, and I want to hear your thoughts on their impending recruitments.
Most definitely. And before we do that, everybody, get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. Let's discuss how you also can reach your target market. Check out the experience of one of our current partners, that being Win Agency, here posted on the screen, and we are here to deliver for you. Contact us at sponsorships@bocfb.com. Again, that is sponsorships@bocfb.com today.
All right. I know you had a list of guys you wanted to run through. Let's hear them. Let's bang them out here.
Well, let's start with KJ Ford. Okay. There's a lot of D-line talk, everybody, I know, but that's the pressing matter. So
it's one of the big pressing matters.
But KJ Ford, another Duncanville player out of Texas. Now, for everyone that doesn't know on how this whole situation worked and how this became this is another late push, a very late push. USC was in a bidding war for Luke Waffle, how do you say it, with Ohio State. I personally do not believe that Luke is a bidding war player. I just don't.
Nope.
I've seen the tape.
We talked about that on Thursday.
Yeah, I see the tape. He no. And so, but with that being said, that happened because USC, they did that instead of going for KJ Ford, who was a lean for USC. What does Ohio State do? They go in, they do a late push, like I said earlier, and now we're trying to make this happen. Now, I think if you want to get into a bidding war, I think this is the type of guy you would do it for. What do you think, Ryan, about this recruitment for KJ Ford?
I mean, as far as like a bidding war goes, I don't I typically like to reserve those for the creme de la creme, the top guys. I'm talking 5-star kids who know they can go to any school they want, but that's where you save some of that NIL budget for. So, am I excited about going? What I want to have a recruiting or a bidding war here for Ford? No, I wouldn't. With that being said, if they thought that the Luke Waffle commitment was going to come down to a bidding war, they should have been prepared for that on the back end and had contingency plans in place. Having a late push here for Ford, I don't think is really going to work out. I am not bullish on Ohio State's chances to land him. It's definitely something that can happen, but I don't think that they're going to. I just don't know if they're going to be able to make it up enough ground with some of these other programs who have been recruiting him kind of from day one. I think he's good. I like his tape. I like how he's able to use his hands up front, but I am not positive that he's going to be someone that Ohio State ends up adding in this class. Just, honestly.
I will lean to what you're saying right now. It's, again, when you're this late in recruitment, it's kind of like swimming with your hands tied behind your back and your along with your feet.
Yeah.
You got to do a lot, and I mean a lot. You got to do a lot of contacting. You got to do. Well, listen, man, you got to do some type of negative recruiting, and I mean you got to go hard on that if you can. But there's a lot of things you got to do. Now, do I think there's a chance we can make it happen? I do. But
I certainly think there's a chance. I just don't like the chances.
No, if I had to give a percentage wise of how or like a scale of 1 to 10 of how confident I am, we're talking 3 at the max.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. About 30%. I think we're aligned on that. Who's next on your list?
Next on the list is Derek Cooper.
Okay.
Now, he is in Miami lean. For everyone that doesn't know, Derek Cooper, teammate of Jeremiah Smith in high school.
Yep.
Very good 5-star running back. Very strong, big running back. He's if you go and check his tape, everybody, you're gonna like what you see. Saw his mom posted about their visit. I did comment to her. I said, did he have a good time? And she just gave a laughing emoji. I don't know how to take that. But,
who knows what that means?
Who knows what that means? But no, I do think if there was I'm not extremely confident, that we can surpass Miami on this. But I do think that he is someone that we can bring into Ohio State.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime that you have Coach Locke leading the recruitment, he's earned some faith based on the guys he's brought in. So, and I think, again, this is, I wouldn't necessarily say this is a late push as late as, Ford and some of these other guys, but I think this is more of a hedge on, hey, maybe we can land him instead of Savion Hyder. If Hyder's going to go to Tennessee, maybe we can get Cooper. I still think he does end up at Miami, but I don't mind pushing for a 5-star kid. I will never mind trying to, put some chips in to land one of the best players at a certain position within a given class. So I think that'll be interesting. And, I wanted to pull up this comment here because I'm not so sure that this is the case. I think everyone has kind of been fudging the rules. I know there are some certain things with some past classes, before some NIL stuff was in there, Ohio State. I mean, let's just call it what it was. They weren't exactly above board with some of the recruiting stuff they had, but everyone's been doing that, and there was no defined rules. I don't think that that's part of the reason why they are losing out on recruits. I do think being a little bit cheaper with their NIL budget is part of the reason, but I don't think that that's, a huge issue. So, I just wanted to bring attention to that. And I also wanted to ask you this question because I think it's a good question. Where do you think, I know we're only about halfway through your list here, but where do you think it finishes as far as its rank? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, we're 5 right now, right?
We are 5 right now. They were as high as 2, and now they've dropped to 5.
Yeah. I would say somewhere between 4 and 7.
Okay.
And 7 is like worst case scenario, but no, and I wouldn't be upset with that. I do think that there are very, very talented players in this class. I'm like, as of right now, I'm happy with this class except for one position, right? On top of that, the current Ohio State team is very young. So if we landed somewhere between, well, I think, how many recruits are we at? 18 right now?
I think we have 16.
16. Okay, thank you. If we finish somewhere around, let's say 25 to 27, I'll be happy. And so, but with that being said, if you're gonna stay in the top 5 classes, you have to we have to land some of these high end recruits.
Yeah. I think they ultimately end up about 5th as well. I think 5's. It just seems like they're going to have some good guys. They still have more 5-star recruits than anybody else in the country right now. I'm not sure that holds. But I still think, a top 5 recruiting class is the floor for Ryan Day. We've talked about that. So I still think that's probably where they end up. But I know you've got some other guys you wanted to run through on your list. So who's next?
Yeah. So, this isn't the biggest news. All right. It ain't the biggest news. But there's a quarterback that Ohio State offered. And I want to talk about that. That being Luke Fahey. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Luke.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, awesome. 6 foot, 185. Ranked somewhere around in the 20s as a prospect around on 3, 247 composite, whatever you want to look at.
Yep.
He's not someone that you're gonna bloviate about. Watch his tape. I think yesterday. Project type of player, but when you hear 6 foot 185, you're thinking a small person. Not at all. Not one bit. If I had to compare him to a player comp wise in terms of size, I would say like a Russell Wilson type of like size wise as a player.
Yeah.
What do you think led to him getting offered? And I am someone that believes you must get a quarterback or 2 in every single class. So what do you think about that?
So they've been talking with him for a while. Seeing him get an offer is not surprising to me. I think it's been Day's philosophy that he wants to get a quarterback in every class. He wants to take at least one quarterback in every recruiting class. And looking at what the roster is right now, where you have Julian Sand, who's a former 5-star recruit, he's probably looking to be a multi-year starter. Then behind him, you've got Tavian St. Clair, who was the number 2 overall recruit in last year's recruiting class, another 5-star kid. He's going to want to start right after Sand leaves, or try to beat him out in a couple of years in general. So they've got these top 5, or they've got these 5-star recruits here at the quarterback position that are expecting to start and do good things for Ohio State. And if you're gonna offer a kid who's a borderline 3-star, 4-star recruit at the quarterback position, this year would be the time to do it, because you have guys who you are confident can, be great. And also you have Brady Edmonds coming in 2027. So you've got a lot of top rated guys coming in, and there's only one football. You can only play one quarterback. So if this is the quarterback they decide to take for 2026, I'm honestly okay with that, because Ryan Day's got a track record of bringing in great elite quarterback recruits.
For sure. Felix Ojo.
He was a name you didn't mention earlier, and I was going to bring him up. So I wanted to talk to you about him.
No, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. I'll lead that, buddy.
Yeah, no. So some good news coming out of the Ojo camp. I think, initially me and you were a little bit more pessimistic as far as his recruitment goes, because he's been a Texas lean for a while, according to all of the major recruiting services. But it just came out now that Ojo has narrowed it down to really 2 schools. It's Texas and it's Ohio State. And much to the chagrin of Michigan fans who were claiming that they still had a shot at him, it looks
not at all.
Yeah, no, they never did. Let's be real. It sounds like Ohio State and Texas are right in the thick of things. And yeah, I know we talked about earlier about recruits who, could be considered good enough to be in a bidding war. This is one of those guys. This is one of those recruits who I would be perfectly fine with ending up in a bidding war because he's listed as the second best tackle recruit in the country. I think there's a chance, and I know you mentioned this as well, when it's all said and done, he could end up being better than Jackson Cantwell by the time his college football career
Most definitely.
So I think this is great news, and it's still going to take a lot for Ohio State to get him. But the fact that he named him his top 2 is nothing bad.
Yeah, and like Fishman says, yeah. Ojo is Texas all day. Daniel Henry says, so Ojo will be this year's David Sanders. That's so tough.
I actually think they've got a better shot at landing Ojo than they ever did David Sanders.
Yeah. Look, when you hear that it's you and one other program, that's encouraging. That is encouraging. Now, where Ohio State's where Ohio State has over the last few years not landed kids like this.
Yep.
Now, I will say I am more confident today with Bowen than I ever was with Fry to land a kid like this. I am much more confident. Right now, the offensive line recruiting has had an uptick with Bowen. I do think that we have some quality guys right now that are offensive linemen in our class. But you get a kid like Ojo, that changes a lot. It's the type of player that you could possibly play day one if need be. And if you do it, you ain't that sad about it. On top of that, Ohio State for the last few years has had to go in. We've had to go into the portal. We have had to. Now that much of that is due to recruiting. And I do think that coming out of Justin Fry, who was, I would say, an elite developer of offensive linemen, I am encouraged going into Bowen because Bowen, his specialty is the run game. That's what he does. And to have a good run game, you need a good offensive line. You need to be able to develop them also. So we'll see what happens here. But if I had to give us a confidence scale on this, I'm somewhere around 4 to 5, 5 being the highest right now. Because Texas is on they're recruiting very well right now. They are.
They're on a little bit of a heater.
Yeah, they are. And which, by the way, speaking of heater, I mean the whole Big Ten today, and actually as of over the last 2 weeks or so, my goodness. I mean, you look at what Michigan State's been doing for what they're coming out of. I think they're doing well too. Minnesota also, weirdly. But yeah,
I think Michigan State just flipped a kid, but yeah.
Yeah, wide receiver from UCF.
Yeah.
And then the last guy.
Well, hold on. Just one last thought here on Ojo before you move on.
Please. Go ahead.
This is the kind, like my confidence level, I have a much higher confidence than I do Ford or any of the other guys we've talked about as far as some of these late guys. I have them, 45%, 46%. It's pretty close to a toss-up for me at this point. The word is they're really trying. It's going to come down to an NIL thing. And as I mentioned, this is someone that I do think you go ahead and get in that bidding war for and make sure that you land them. But go ahead.
Oh no, you back the Brinks truck up.
Oh yeah,
you back Ohio State. If you listen, I'm no big bank guy, but I can give you $5. Just let me know. My goodness. Yeah. And then I don't want to call this a negative, but it is. All right, and it involves the same team. Tyler Atkinson. So he did cancel his visit for another program called Texas. And it sucks. And it's, we hear this all the time from recruits. But I mean, he it wasn't that long ago when he said that Ohio State was at the top of his list. Now,
Yeah, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
yes, very recent. So what happened in between that time, I have no idea. I don't know what to tell you. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that happening in his recruitment?
It seems like, again, NIL. And, I sound like a broken record here. Unfortunately, that's just the way the game of recruiting is played at this point. These kids are deciding a lot on how much money can I make right now? What is the maximum earning potential I can have right now to see what
Mm-hmm.
happens? And honestly, I know you just put up that comment. Those are two guys I wanted to talk about here in a little bit.
Oh yeah, pull that back up.
Yeah.
We'll get to that next.
Yeah, but as far as Atkinson goes, I think it's probably a lost cause.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some other good linebackers that Ohio State is still in on. I think that they have decided where they're going to put their NIL budget, and a lot of it has, at least so far, seemed to be in retaining the guys they have. They are more into roster retention than they are into spending a bunch of money for new guys, which I get to an extent because some of those guys are proven, but you've got to replenish those guys somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's gonna be a balancing act they're gonna figure out here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people in the comments talking about money, right?
Yeah.
Let's be clear, everybody. Ryan Day is not going to pay a high school kid more than he's paying his starters. He ain't gonna do it. He's been very adamant on that.
Yep.
And I was watching my guys Kyle with Sam. He talked about Ohio, like the positives and negatives about Ohio State recruiting, right? Like negatives, but it is that Ohio State's not gonna depending on who you are, we're not gonna go out of our way to pay you massive amounts of money as a high school player. Which for me personally, and people might not like this, I'm okay with. I am very adamant on not paying north of $1 million a year for a high school kid unless it is warranted. And when I say warranted, I mean Jeremiah Smith warranted. So
yeah, I agree. Well, I know I pulled that comment back up here, and these two guys, Aaron Thomas and Drew Evers. I wanted to talk about them because, again, unfortunately, it doesn't sound like those guys are favored to come to Ohio State either. Based off the news I've heard, it doesn't look like again, it sounds more like an NIL-driven thing. And I hate that I have to keep saying that, and I hate that that's where we're at in college sports, but it just seems like that's the main thing that a lot of these recruits are looking for. They're not necessarily looking for where can I win a championship, where can I be developed. Now, some of them are. Like, don't get me wrong, some of them are. But it seems like money is now the driving force behind what these kids want to do. I can't necessarily blame them because if they get injured, one injury could change the entire course of their career and they may not even make the NFL. So I don't necessarily blame them. But I do agree here with Daniel. If Bowen could somehow land those guys, would be great. I don't know if they'll land either of them though. I mean, what are your thoughts about Thomas and Evers?
I mean, Thomas, man, listen, you're talking about beating out Texas A&M.
Which is wild that they don't seem to be able to do that. I know they've been pouring a bunch of money into their NIL budget, so I get it from that standpoint. But
and then Evers is let me if I'm wrong here, unless there's someone else there, but outside of Penn State, is there someone else?
No, so as far as Evers goes, he's another Texas guy. Like Ohio State has, they've got roots of recruiting really well in the state of Texas. It's just between Ohio State and Penn State. And if you can't out-recruit James Franklin for an offensive lineman, I don't necessarily know what we're doing here. He's another guy who just visited Texas A&M this weekend as well. We'll see what Evers decides to do. Again, this may be one of those things where it's just an NIL-driven thing, and Ohio State's, like you just said, they're not going to budge as far as their principles go when it comes to offering recruits a certain amount of money. And I think that might just be kind of how it is.
So, do you have anyone else you want to bring up?
No, those were the main guys that I had on my list. Do you have anybody else?
No. Like Sean, I see you in here, and I'll pull this comment up right here. Christian Clayton says Larry recruiting in NIL era equals MJ on the Wizards. So I want to talk about this. I had a very extensive conversation with some guys today. I have been tough on Larry Johnson, but I'm backing off a little. Yes, but I'm backing off a little bit here, and this is why. Over the last few years, look, since 2021, defensive line recruiting has dropped off. Though we have been able to pick up players like Cade McDonald, Georgia kid, Edric Houston, Georgia kid, so those are great pickups, right?
Yep.
So a few things I think that where I give Larry some grace. You can't expect a 73-year-old guy to travel, make visits, drive, and do all that, constantly contacting all these kids. That you can't expect that. Now that's what you had a guy like Clark for, who is now at Texas.
Yep.
I believe this has more to do with the operation of Ohio State.
Okay.
I think that when you look about what was happening around the country, and everyone has GMs, I think in a lot of programs have a lot of assistants. I think that Ohio State coming out of the championship, we paid a lot of guys. We gave a lot of guys new positions, hired a lot of assistants. I don't think we did that enough at a defensive line, and we should have, especially due to what happened over the last few years. Ohio State has to fix that. And
yes,
though I believe Larry, though I do wish Larry had gone off into the sunset, he does have proof of concept. And though I believe, JTT at the end of the day, he did go second round. Jack, he got drafted. At the end of the day, that is.
He got drafted. The fact that you said that about a guy who was a 5-star recruit.
Top 5 recruit.
That's, yeah. And like the entire country, that's,
But at the same time, I'm not going to throw away the fact that Tyleek was a 3-star recruit who turned to a first rounder. And so, and also he was able to get Edric, but it came in a stipulation that Larry stays while he's there. So, yes, I do believe Larry Johnson, man, you got to do something, right? And
I think of what it really is. It's just a mixed bag with him at this point. And I think that's what we're frustrated about, because there's a segment of the fan base who wants people to stop getting on Larry's case. He's been a great recruiter for a while. He's been developing these guys. He's won 2 national championships, 2 different head coaches. Why are you, always complaining about him? All of those things are great. Like Larry both of us have done I feel like a fair job of applauding those accomplishments. You should applaud those accomplishments. Those are great accomplishments. You can never take those away from him. And he has done a fantastic job throughout his career at Ohio State. That doesn't mean that he shouldn't be able to adapt to the times. Like, if you're going to stay on staff, you have to be able to adapt to a new generation of not just recruits and players, but new generation of college football rules. You have to make yourself, you have to be able to change with the times. And I just don't feel like that's something that he's doing right now. And I think that's why a lot of Ohio State fans are frustrated with him. Yeah,
and like what I told the guys, and what I was telling the guys, because I was like, listen, guys, like, you're not the Ohio State fans, so you're not feeling the blunt of what's happening, right? When you see for the last 4 years, over the last 4 years, Ohio State has struggled to stop the run. Okay. Now, I do want to bring this comment up. I think I lost it. Here we go. Jam, He says, do you think it was Knowles? I do think part of that was Knowles. In the playoffs, we decided to be more aggressive. It is not – Knowles' scheme is not meant to be aggressive. It is a bender break deep scheme. That's what it is. And in the playoffs, we were able to like Jack had big plays, but I look at a guy like JTT who wreaked havoc in the playoffs. Was a hog molly in the playoffs, and I do think that under Matt Patricia, and I see Doreen, you say you like Matt P. He's going to be more aggressive. NFL guys are more aggressive by nature because you have to be in the NFL. And I think that Ohio State has the personnel to do that. So, again, when it comes to LJ, I'm willing to give some grace. He's been here for a very long time. 2 national championships while he's been here. But no one is above reproach. And at Ohio State, you expect the best no matter what. There's a stipulation in Ohio State coaches' contracts that they win every game and they beat Michigan. Now, is that a crazy is that crazy standard?
No.
Yeah, it is.
No,
it is. But because I live in reality, man. You ain't winning every game. But it is what it is, right? The standard is the standard, as they say.
Standard is the standard.
And right now, and you might not like me saying this, Sean, and I think we talked about this, Ryan, but if I were to rank every single recruiter on our team,
he's not high on the list.
He ain't high on the list. Matt G's ahead of him right now, clearly, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So, no, listen, man. Like LJ deserves grace. I do think he does, and maybe we've been too harsh on him. And at this moment in time, I am going to put more blame. I'll put 60% of the blame on the operation of Ohio State right now when it comes to this. But when you are paid $1.4 million, meaning you are the only person that gets paid more on this team is Ryan Day.
Yeah.
And when you are paid loads of money like that, man, you gotta show and prove. So look, I'm gonna back off from LJ for a bit. But come mid-season, I'm gonna look at the class, and I'm gonna see what it looks like.
Oh yeah.
And by week 6, week 7, I don't even care the 5 stars, man. If I don't see 3, 4 star kids on this team, I'm gonna be very upset. I'm gonna be very upset because at this point now, I had guys saying that does LJ have more power than Ryan Day? No. But no coach is above the program. And the truth of the matter is, it's hard to get rid of a guy like LJ. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Anything else you want to hit before we
something real quick. I'm gonna give you guys a story. Because this is something has to do with I guess mostly program / institution, but we'll talk about the athletic department and program. So in a space this weekend, Ohio State space, we were talking. A guy named David Daniel came up, and maybe he didn't word it the best way, but he was talking about how past Ohio State players, past legends, were basically struggling to get tickets and having to pay for their tickets to Ohio State games. And no one believed him. They thought he was trolling. So what I did was that during that conversation, I followed him. He followed me back. And I went to his Instagram because I wanted to, I just want to see. And as I'm sorry, this is what happened. As soon as I followed him, Braxton Miller followed me. And I said, well, that's weird. And for people that don't know, Braxton has his own 7-on-17 for his youth league called Charging, and it's an NIL thing also. And when I looked at David's, it said the same thing. So I went to his Instagram page, and I went to 2018. And you can see Braxton all through that. So he's very involved with Braxton Miller. And then in that time, I went back into the space, and I told the guys that. And then my guy Cam, he went to his DMs, and Braxton told him this simply. I pay for my tickets at Ohio State. Ohio State University. There should never be a reason why and mind you, guys like our age, Braxton knows a lot of guys' top 3 favorite belt guys. Like I mean,
he's on my list. He's one of my top 5 guys.
And like dude, and our because me and Braxton the same. You're 32. You graduated in 2011, right?
I graduated Ohio State in 2016.
No, in high
school is 2012. So
okay, so I graduated in 2011. I graduated the same year as Braxton. I actually played with one of his teammates. Shout out to my boy Betos. But I remember after leaving my games, I would rush back to go watch Braxton play because I'm still a Buckeye fan, right? Even though we're the same age. In no universe should Braxton Miller be paying for an Ohio State ticket. In no universe should that be happening. So as a fan base, I think we should be loud about that because I think that it helps recruiting when you have guys like Braxton Miller around. I think it helps the overall morale of the program. And to say for the 100th time, legends like Braxton Miller should not be paying for tickets to our games. And that's all I got. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but that's all I had to say.
Co-sign everything you said. There's no reason Ohio State legends should not being able to get comped somehow for these tickets. Like you mentioned, it would do wonders in the world of recruiting. Would certainly help, having those guys around the program a little bit more to help to really help the current players, understand what experiences, they have to look forward to. So I agree with everything you said. I would say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Based on stuff Ohio State's done as far as their just decision-making in general. I don't know if you've seen the documentary on HBO yet, Surviving Ohio State. I know that's not specifically about Ohio State football, but I would encourage all Ohio State fans to watch that because some of the stuff that they allowed Mr. Richard Strauss to do is deplorable.
Disgusting.
And, and we knew about that a lot here locally in Columbus, but I don't think people really understood to the extent of how bad it was.
Yeah.
So I definitely encourage everyone to watch that. But that's it's bad. It's really bad.
I actually, when that came out, I went on Facebook and talked about that probably 2 years ago. It's it's
bad.
Deplorable.
Yes.
And,
yes.
But
hopefully Ohio State start making some better decisions. So I guess that's really how I'll end that.
Yeah, man.
But that's I guess pretty much it for us tonight.
Yeah.
We will be back on Thursday for the call-in show. So, bring in your questions, comments. Love to hear from you guys every Thursday. So that is your show. And we look forward to talking to you guys then. OH.
IO.